Hello, book lovers, and thanks for listening. I post new chapters every week. If you like my work, please remember to like and subscribe to help me build my channel. The Stillwater Girls by Minka Kent. Narrated by Jennifer Schafer. Chapter 2. Nicolette. I'm in desperate need of a Band-Aid of the marital variety, but Band-Aids aren't meant for gashes. They're meant for little cuts and scrapes, hangnails and paper cuts, things that heal quickly before disappearing altogether. Our marriage is a jagged gash, all the good parts, the parts we need to survive and the parts that make us who we are together, gushing from the wound. And there's no tourniquet in sight. I don't know how to stop the bleeding. All I know is that I have to try, because I'm losing him. They said we could schedule our home study whenever we want. I stand over the stove, sautéing garlic and kale in a La Creuset pan as my husband glances up from his laptop at the kitchen table. Won't be long, and we'll be licensed to foster in the state of New York. Brant pushes his wire-frame glasses up the bridge of his straight nose, and I wait for a smile or a confirmation of some sort that this news is pleasing to him. But it never comes. They said it could take up to a year to get a placement once we're approved, I add, ignoring the guilt that comes in waves every time I sense my husband's void of excitement. Or sometimes it happens right away. You just never know. His attention returns to his screen, where he's elbow-deep in photography edits for an upcoming exhibit. The Bell House Museum of Contemporary Art in Manhattan has chosen to showcase his work for the next 4 months. Despite the fact that it's been his lifelong dream to have his work honored and recognized by a world-renowned institution, he's been nothing but short-fused since we got the news. I slide the limp kale and browned bits of garlic onto a serving dish with a wooden spoon, and wipe my hands on my apron before checking on the roast chicken. Can you imagine kids running around in here? I ask with a slight chuckle. I can. I've imagined it thousands of times before. Maybe more. That's what happens when you meet the man of your dreams at 22. Marry him. Postpone starting a family so you can travel the world by his side as he photographs the most beautiful things this earth has to offer, and then find your consciousness fading as you lie on an operating table for an emergency hysterectomy at the age of 25. I don't need anyone but you, Nick. Never have, never will, Brant had told me as they wheeled me back that morning. He held my hand in his and pressed his lips against my fingers, his eyes resting on mine until my body was awash in warmth and his reassurance. It's the only thing I truly remember about that day. The rest is blurred and faded, washed away by years of trying to forget having a piece of my God-given womanhood ripped away without warning, without choice. Turns out removing the ability to have babies does nothing to quell maternal urges. If anything, it only makes them less deniable, although the dream is that much more out of reach, placed on the top shelf with no stepladder in sight. And speaking of dreams, I had another one of those baby dreams last night, the ones where I'm pushing a stroller around a park on a beautiful fall day, only when I glance down, I find my stroller empty. It's always empty, and it's always then that I wake up in a cold sweat, a gaping hollowness in my chest, until I realize it wasn't real. There's no baby. There never was. My subconscious is a cruel, cowardly bitch that shows herself only when I'm unable to fight back, unable to shut her off. I get it. I'm empty. I want something I can't have. You've edited those photos 100 times already, I say, removing the chicken from our state-of-the-art oven in our state-of-the-art chef's kitchen, which happened to be a Christmas gift to ourselves 2 years ago. These are the things you get excited about when you don't have kids. But what I wouldn't give to be able to wipe sticky handprints off stainless steel just once. Brant ignores my remark. I ignore the sting of being in second place to his life's work. It's always been this way, some years better or worse than others, but it's never been as bad as it has the past couple of years. At times, I find myself irrationally jealous of his work, as if she's a mistress who gives him everything he could ever want, which leaves me feeling inadequate and insecure. I've never been that kind of person. He says he has to chase his muse. Sometimes that muse is me, sometimes it isn't. I just miss his time, his present presence. I miss his laugh, his sweetness, his adoration, all the good parts, the parts I've loved with abandon, without question. I miss us. Plating his food, I carry our dinners to the table and take my seat beside him. With unabashed reluctance, he closes his laptop and pushes it aside. I'm so sorry, Nick. His hand reaches for mine, and our eyes meet as he exhales. The Bell House exhibit is one of the greatest things to happen to me, and it's turning me into a self-centered ass. He brings the top of my hand to his lips, and our gazes meet. I bask in his unexpected moment of clarity, wrapping my bruised ego in it like a warm blanket. He gets it. For the first time in years, he finally gets it. I can't imagine the amount of pressure you're under, I say, ever the sympathetic partner. It's a part of me I can't shut off. Just let me know what I can do to help, all right? I suppose I've created my own monster over the years, always supporting and understanding without a second thought. But that's what you do when you love someone, when you've promised to dedicate your entire life to them, come what may. His happiness is mine, and vice versa. Or at least, it used to be vice versa. Brant lets me go and takes a fork from one of the folds of his cloth napkin. So, this fostering thing. My stomach flips. Brant has never been the kind of man who yearned for children, but from the beginning, he had this take it or leave it attitude any time I'd bring it up, always implying it was up to me. After the hysterectomy, we looked into adoption, but we were told it could take upwards of 10 years to get a healthy infant, so we held off, convincing ourselves that we were just enough for one another and justifying it every way we could. Maybe it's a sign, Brant had said at the time. Not everyone's meant to be parents. Brant dealt with our decision by burying himself in his work, accepting more international assignments, and traveling every chance he got, with me in tow. Seeing the world and escaping this one took my mind off the physical void that our decision left behind. But that was only temporary. Eventually, that void came back tenfold, and it always seems to worsen the colder the weather gets. Maybe it's the barren trees in the forest outside our home that trigger me. They look empty and dead this time of year, like my non-existent womb. I try not to think about the fact that we might have had a baby by now, had we just stuck it out and placed ourselves on the waiting list. Fear does that to you, though. It makes you question what you want and what you think you want. I hate not knowing what to expect, when we're going to be approved and all that, I say. But it's kind of exciting, right? It's like a little adventure. You're idealizing this, he says, like he said a dozen times before, his tone gentle yet firm. I just worry you'll get attached and something will happen. I worry there's a child out there who needs us, I say, so that worry overrides yours. I wink to lighten my sentiment. Brant smiles, lips closed as he chews, but his eyes crinkle at the corners, squinting as he loses himself in thought. Having been with this man the better part of my entire adult life, I can almost surmise what he's thinking. Will you be okay at home alone with the child while I travel? Will you miss seeing the world with me? Do you fully understand everything you're giving up to do this? What if we can't bond with the child? What if the child has issues we're not equipped to handle? If he were to ask me these things, as he has in the past, I'd give him the same unchanged answer. He needs to leave the worrying to me. There isn't a single scenario I haven't spent hours hashing out in my mind whenever I'm struck by a sleepless night, which lately has been far too often, since Brant holes himself up in his studio until the wee hours of the morning, finishing his latest commissioned project for Vanity Fair. My husband turns his attention to his dinner, drawing into his introverted shell all over again, and I think about the thing I've been trying not to think about since the moment I came across it in his sock drawer. We need a tourniquet, and we need one now because I'm losing him. End of chapter 2.